Okay, so welcome to episode 7, off lead, episode 7. So what we're going to do today, I think, is we're going to hop back a couple of episodes to when we were talking about dog behavior, maybe dogs leaving the ring, chasing out of the ring, etc. And we're going to discuss life skills versus agility skills. I think it's quite an important one. What we deem to be either most important or what should be done first or not.
So for me, I don't mind opening this one. I think life skills has to come first. What would you deem? Okay, so lots of people have different ideas of a canine life skill. So give me a canine life skill, and we'll use that as an example.
So for me, I want my dogs to be able to cope in different environments. And when I say cope, I don't mean that they have to do anything in particular. They just have to be comfortable or be able to manage in certain environments. I think being comfortable is hard because some dogs aren't always comfortable, but they should be able to manage. And
this is a real big thing for me, because I think before I do anything with any dog, whether it be a rescue dog or whether it be an agility dog or just a pet dog owner, I think that dogs should be exposed to different environments in a very slow, scheduled way. So in order to provide balance, you need variety, because nobody ever knows what's going to happen when you go down the shop, or what's going to happen, and etc. And I think the way the human interacts with the dog sometimes can be a little bit forceful, but not forceful, but a little bit pressurized, perceived pressure. I talk about this all the time. So perceived pressure is you don't realize that you're giving pressure, but the other person feels that it's pressure. So we do this to dogs, or lots of people do this to dogs. So generally, if I'm dealing with, say, a dog from Romania, or an imported dog, and somebody will contact me because they're anxious to get training and they want to start, and they'll be so surprised when I just say, I'm not even going to come into your house for a month. You just need to decompress the dog and do nothing, absolutely do nothing, but be predictable. So when we go into a new environment, generally as agility handlers and that sort of thing, we want to work on focus, don't we? We want our dogs focused on us. However, I've changed a lot in this over the years, in the fact that yes, I want focus, but I also want my dog not to be reacting. Do you know what I mean? So just to absorb. And if you say, I don't know, I know in the last episode when I said to you about going to, you're going into salsa, if I was to say to you, right, okay, you're going to go to a dance class, but now you're going to dance, and now you're going to do this, and now you're going to do that. You'd want to take in your surroundings first, wouldn't you?
Yes.
So lots of dogs, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but lots of people do too much with their dog too soon by trying to expose them into different environments. I think all new dogs should be assessed without reaction. Does that make sense? Or do I need to expand?
No, I agree. So, and that's why I said it's. I don't think it's about your dog necessarily being comfortable in an environment, but it's about being able to cope with the environment.
Yes, it's okay not to be comfortable, isn't it?
And that's fine if your dog's got a little bit of, if they're uncertain and they're uncomfortable, that's absolutely fine. But what we don't want them to do is be freaking out about that all the time. And
that brings us back to kind of reactive dogs, isn't it? Is what is deemed as reactive, and I really massively believe that reactive dogs, generally their behaviours are either triggered by their owners or reinforced by their owners. And that doesn't mean to say that they're doing anything wrong. So very often when I say that to somebody, you're triggering it or you're reinforcing it, people will take that they're doing something wrong, and it's
Yes,
not that they're doing something wrong at all.
No.
In fact, generally it's that they're trying. So I want to see a dog naked. I want to see what is that dog's personality. I'll stick generally a harness and a long line on that dog and just observe, just do nothing. Can it cope with walking into different environments, walking into car parks, walking into everything, because so much goes into a balanced dog, doesn't it? We were talking earlier about genetics and oxygen and sun, good motherhood and all that good breeding, which doesn't always exist.
No.
So
and that's the thing we were talking. Obviously, it's okay. Generally, it's good if you've had a puppy from sort of 8 or 9 weeks old from a breeder, and you've got all, like you say, they've had all the first 8 weeks of everything that they need. Whereas we could also be looking now at, like you say, a dog from Romania, a rescue dog that's had probably 6 or 12 months of not having that.
Yeah, I also believe, and it's really hard, Stuart, because I don't. If somebody hasn't got anything wrong with their dog, I don't see it.
Yeah.
But I see a lot more nervousness of the environment than I ever did.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say that's all to do with the pandemic, because I was seeing it before the pandemic. So dogs are generally a lot more nervous than they used to be.
Okay. So
I think it's down to breeding, and I think it's down to not just breeding. I do think it's down to some breeding. Some selected breeds shouldn't be bred together.
Okay. Do you also think that it may be from a handler's point of view or an owner's point of view, where there's so much pressure to not have a reactive dog or not have so what they do is they hide them away from certain things because they don't want that?
Well, I think it's down to media. We've gone completely off piste here, but I think it's an important point that dogs in the media have to conform.
Yeah.
Okay, which means they're not allowed to bark, which means they're not allowed to bite, obviously. But when I was a kid, Stuart, you just didn't go near the dog with a bone. Trainers were a thing that very few people had. People have put so much pressure on themselves to get it right, but also I believe that sometimes little knowledge is worse, is bad. So if you have a little bit of knowledge and you share that knowledge with people, it's like, oh well, I saw the bloke, and this is another thing, the bloke on the telly, well, he did that. Well, actually it's just been edited. Do you know what I mean? I was asked to go on television and I refused because I'm not in control of the editing, and you can't do that. So I think there's a lot of pressure on people to get it right. So when they get the puppy or the rescue dog, it's like, right, I've got to get it right. Even I've done this. And then you take them into a new environment, and say, for instance, your dog barks or your dog shies back at a noise or something like that. If you react, you're just going to compound it, aren't you?
Yeah. But I think we're almost forced to react because we're told that that's a bad thing. So as a general
I think
owner,
we're perceived. I think we're perceived to be told it's a bad thing.
Yeah. So we're told, oh, the dog's not allowed to bark, or the dog's not allowed to do this. We've got to do something about it. Whereas instead of just giving the dog 5 minutes to think about it for a second and then deal with it a little bit more.
But do you think that's sometimes in people's head? This goes back to the episode on the men-women thing where we said that men were frightened of getting it wrong or whatever. So are people actually saying that? Because and you're right in what you're saying, right? Is that people are frightened of getting it wrong. They don't want their dogs to bark because so and so might say so and so, and so and so might say so and so. Do these people actually say it?
No, I don't know.
I hear more people worried about what people are going to think than I do that people are actually going to slag that off. Do you know what I mean? So again, that's probably down to mental pressure. in that we think that we've got to get it right because you know, I mean, me as a dog trainer, Jesus, you know, I put massive amount of pressure on myself to
and that sort of goes into agility as well. So I say that a lot to my clients when they go into a show and they're worried about what people are going to think when things go wrong, what's going to happen. And I spend a lot of time saying, nobody, sounds really horrible, nobody cares.
No, exactly that. Exactly, and everybody's really well, you know, the minority that are not supportive aren't even worth wasting your breath over. But
if you look around the ring at an agility show, 95% of the people are eating bacon sandwiches, drinking a cup of tea, chatting. They're not actually watching what's going on.
No. So anyway, we've gone off. So the first life skill is to try and have a dog that is comfortable in general in most surroundings.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's above agility skill.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. So like, excuse me, when it comes to walking around, like what we see at generally an agility show, when you walk around an agility show, how many dogs do you actually see sitting calmly, taking in the environment, compared to the amount of dogs that you see barking, lunging?
And there's a lot of pressure on people to get their dogs driven, and you know, so I wouldn't tug my dog, or Nairobi, I'm thinking about her because she's a puppy now. I don't tug her in a new environment until she's been in there for 2 or 3 minutes and just absorbed, and and just generally I do that in a crate if I'm in a training environment, because then I can't input any of my emotion into her. So this happens as well, where somebody's dog might run into you, and if you've got your dogs, you know, we'll get protective over our dogs, so we might go, oh, for God's sake. And then suddenly, like, the puppy's like, oh, that must have been a bad thing, you know. So generally, it's better off, you know, just being really chilled about it. So having a balanced dog is really good. What would be your number 2? I'm just interested because my
number 2 from a life skill point of view is a dog that I choose to have my dog into a sit or a stand or something where they can wait calmly.
Before that, Stuart, so that's a trained behaviour to me. That's not a life skill.
Okay, so a life skill. So what did I say first? It has to be calm and balanced.
So yours was balanced, and so it's being able to be comfortable in an environment is a life skill. So I would say that. My second would always be that my dog chooses to be obedient. They make good choices. Yeah. Now, as I say, I'm massively passionate about this. My whole brand is based on essential canine life skills. Too many people these days train. So everything that their dog does is a trained behavior. My brand is all about 50% training, 50%, you know, essential canine life skills. And you can't teach life skills, right? So no, actually you can. So I often liken this to humans, right? So when you're a mother or a father, you got this little child that grows up and you go, say please, say please, say please. Yeah. But then when you go into a shop, you don't correct them. Or we're in a pub, you don't expect the same behavior. So you expect different behaviors in different environments. Okay. So which leads to confusion. Okay. So definitely all dogs should embark on an obedience. And I don't mean obedience like competition obedience, but definitely pet dog obedience, pet dog classes, and that's not a plug for work because I'm too full, but that gets them working around other dogs. But also we talk about general good manners, waiting at the door. You know, so for instance, if you have no rules or boundaries at home and your dog isn't encouraged to make good choices and the right choices, then when you put a trained behavior in, if they choose not to do something at home, then they could choose at any one time not to put your trained behavior in.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So I think having kind of like some real good manners, and you know, I don't mean like old school discipline and everything else like that. But I think we are a nation of people that spoil kids, that spoil, you know, and it's a good thing. You know, it's come a long way. Obviously, we don't beat kids up, we don't beat dogs up. I mean, some people do. However, I think some people go the other way and feed everything. So everything has a treat, everything has that. No. The reward for me for my dogs going through a front door is going through a front door. But actually, just having a little stay there while we go through the front door instead of going like, rah, do you know what I mean? Will then mean so that when you put your trained behaviour in, then your dog is likely to make a good choice.
I get that.
That's my number 2.
Okay, so
I would want that above an agility skill.
Okay, so then at what point would you put in your trained skills? What point would you start?
Still all the time. So for me, with a new dog coming, whether it be a puppy or whether it be you know, agility dog, rescue dog, whatever, I wouldn't expect anything for the first couple of weeks. I would be establishing boundaries. You know, a little bit, tiny bit of food respect. And again, I don't mean like, wait there, you know, all that sort of stuff. You just, even opening a crate door, you can start to just chill. Okay. Do you know what I mean? So I release when I open the door, it's just, okay, you know, it's okay to come through. So, so you start that, and it depends on the dog, you know, and if your dog is showing all the right balance and everything else to start with, and so the boundaries come in, and your to me, your life skills, your stuff that you expect your dog to do is going along the same time as training. So I do, you know, obviously we do train behaviors, but I think without good manners, dogs aren't going to choose to do it, are they?
No.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there are still those dogs that are still going to that are still going to go away. But so that's me, would be my number 2 life skill, and to start chucking in some training as well.
Okay, so do you do, like, I always try and get when I'm doing like agility foundation, like beginning stuff before we get on to anything else. So as from a behavior point of view, I always say to everybody that you've got to get that behavior or that skill or whatever it is you're doing at that time in the comfortable environment first, and then start to introduce it further afield as you move through. So
I agree.
It could take you, let's say, if we take a simple sit, for instance, there's no point in trying to teach your dog a sit in front of Morrison's if they haven't got a sit in the living room.
Yeah. So definitely.
So when we get to like agility shows, if we talk with dogs, that's what we're trying to have a look at now. When you've got a dog, like we said earlier, the last couple of episodes ago, when we said if your dog can't give you a simple sit in that agility environment, then you've got to question whether they're in the right environment.
Yeah, exactly that. Or whether the environment's going to. I was going to say something really, really important then. It's just gone out of my head. But this first thing that generally most people teach is a sit. I don't know why, but we all do. If it's my first go-to, or if the dog's generally got a good reaction to their name, and they can't respond to their name, then again, your dog's not going to carry out their skills, is it?
And that's, like I said, that I think that's more important before any agility or anything that's going on. These little, like say, different behaviors or different choices and different basic training skills need to be well in place before anything else.
And so I do, my foundation agility, right, is massively different to 99% of the agility trainers out there. So in my foundation agility, we do the usual drive to a toy, you know, some jump work and everything else, but I teach recall, because I need to make sure that my dog's got 100% recall. I teach a leave so that the dogs can come away from something. It means you can't have it. A drop down, because I think that's it, or drop down or emergency stop, depending on what they want to teach. Your basic weight, and so what have I got? Recall, leave, drop. You know, is another really good one. So they're for me and I'm sure that's going to surprise a lot of listeners. They are way up the top of the list.
Okay.
As is, and I think this is missed as well, a reward system.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
Food often can be a negotiator.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of dogs recently that I've been really struggling to get weaving. It's not lockdown hasn't helped. We've not had the continuity, but I've got a cockapoo that I've been working with for several years that chooses not to weave.
Yeah.
And it chooses not to weave in a training environment because I've spoken to the lady about fitness and that sort of thing, but it's generally quite fit, but it's like, this is too hard.
Yeah.
Can you please show me how to do it? And of course we can't, so it's too hard, which to me then means that the reward isn't high enough
for
the dogs. So if I always say that dogs choose their rewards. We've kind of like, I think we've moved on from an era.
That's fine.
Of not wanting. So lots of trainers would always, and still do, like just want the dogs to tug. Well, not all dogs will tug in all environments, but so this particular dog was a negotiator in obedience. She was first time dog owner, lovely owners, but loads and loads of work. The dog is a very, very strong cocker side. It's got very strong genetic traits. We've had resource guarding, we've had all sorts with this dog, but she's put in massive amount of work. But as a first time dog owner, and she came through my classes and we did pick up on it a little bit, the dog was really good at negotiating.
Yeah.
So, you sit, what's in it for me? Person gets the sausage out and then the dog sits, which is where food is an adversive, if you like, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So I've looked, and this is one of those dogs that you go home and you're like, oh my God, how the heck am I going to get this dog to I've taken food out of it. She's worked really hard on getting the dog tugging because it doesn't negotiate with a tug.
No, okay, cool.
So having a reward system, I think, is a good life skill for your dogs as well. But it's a reward system that you're in charge of, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. Like say, our dogs, some of ours, older dogs, are very cheeky. That we were talking to somebody the weekend about just putting your hand in your pocket, and the dog instantly
promise to pay, I call it.
Yeah. So the dog, our older dogs are very getting. Obviously, they get a bit older, but they get a little bit more cheeky because we don't train them as much as we should do. Even though they're older, and they start to negotiate, or even sort of preemptively, where you put your hand in your pocket to get your gloves out, and they think that you're going to get all your food out, and they start coming up and going, "Oh, I'll sit here and I'll do this."
Herbie's the worst for that. My Herbie, he's really bad for it. Yeah, so those for me are, I think, above agility skills. All of that.
It's interesting you said about your foundation skills, because mine are the same.
Okay.
I do a lot of circle work, follow me, heel work type exercises, a lot for me. So like you said, a bit of focus, really. Just follow. All you got to do is follow me. Just stay with me as much as you can. A little bit of boundaries, so lying on a bed, in a crate, on a blanket, just something that they can stay calm in a certain environment about. Obviously, the acceleration, decent, chasing down a toy.
Standard stuff.
But I generally don't put any equipment in until we've got a basic understanding.
I used to do an 8-week foundation part. I'd always put a tunnel in because people want a tunnel. I'd always put a little short tunnel because people love to see their dogs doing something. And your general person that's not done agility before will be like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And it will only become apparent much later on why we need these skills. But, going back to your dog that was running out the ring that we were chatting about a couple of weeks ago, if those dogs had had a good lead or a good down or a good, I'm not saying that they would have stopped, but I try and put things into my toolkit. Okay. So best recall from chase, I haven't got it. I've never had it. I have got a drop down So if she's chasing, I can generally drop her into a down. Once I've got her into a down, she's come below threshold quite slightly. I can then use like an interrupter, like a noise. Generally for her is like or something like that, and she'll turn enough to give me a legs command. So whilst I haven't got good recall with her, I've got good recall, but not under chase. She can't cope with it. Because I've got those other skills, and I taught those because she was reactive, and loads of people said to me she should never have gone to craft. She shouldn't have been in those environments because she was massive. I knew I got her to the stage where I could drop her down at any point. However, that had an impact on her drive, so she was always quite steady because we had to keep that, but she was flipping consistent. She was always clear, and she took Stacey to crafts and everything. But I think so it's getting the balance, isn't it? So if you've got your balanced dog, then you probably don't need to do as much as those things, but you do need to make sure that in general you can stop your dog, or recall your dog, or drop your dog down. And I think that's a life skill that they should have in a way, because it's going one day it's going to save your dog's life.
And just that focusing on not necessarily doing something, but just focusing on you or your behavior, like focusing on you more than anything else.
So that, and I feel like I'm taking over this, Stuart, sorry,
no,
but I am really opinionated about this.
It's good.
So that then brings us around to our agility skills and the way that you teach them, isn't it? So I know obviously lots of people still use system, which isn't verbal cueing. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's an amazing thing, and the dog understands the skill. So whether you're using system or you're more, I don't even think that it's classed as European handling anymore, is it? But you're more modern day verbal cueing or that sort of thing. The dog needs to have an understanding, first of all. They need what is expected of them, and a value to it. And that means not overtraining it. So not too much repetition, not too much, of all those other things. So that the dog's like, I want to do this, You're still going to get the dog that buggers off at times, I guess. But
I mean, there is going to be a point, a dog at some point that's going to do something that's maybe a little bit out of the ordinary, maybe something that we wouldn't have planned for in that way. But I mean, that's life, I suppose. But if we can get our life skills in order first, we have less chance of that happening.
I agree. Life skills, and then your trained behaviours trained in the right way. Interestingly, something that I'm not sure that people do when they practice their start line weights is do it against a boundary. So when we do start line weights, obviously it's against a boundary, whether that be a fence boundary or the boundary of people outside a rope. It's still a boundary. So lots of people, when they or I'm sure loads of people do this, but when you're teaching your dog a start line weight, loads of people will do it up in the field or as part of the park, but they need to go to the hedge. They need to go to that boundary with the back to the boundary, because the dogs will sometimes be like, that's, and if that's then too hard, then make sure that you've got it elsewhere and then introduce the boundary. So it's not just about doing it in the environment, is it? But then loads of people you can overtrain that as well, can't you?
I mean, I always say to people that I train in any behavior, if we talk life skills again, I always say to them, like I said earlier, start off in your living room or your kitchen or something where they're absolutely comfortable, they know exactly what they're doing, and then move on to maybe your back garden, maybe your front garden, and then move down the road a little bit to the park, perhaps find the deepest, darkest corner you can find in the park, and then gradually move until you can get right next to the Sunday League football pitch that people are playing. But you can't go from your living room to the Sunday League football pitches.
No, and I don't think that you can expect the same standard, the same standard of your dog's behaviour. So I would say that your dog's behaviour should lessen about, not should, but generally would lessen about 50% down in a new environment. So if I'm working with a dog and I've done some work at home with it, and then I go into the environment, the first thing I'll do is make sure I've got a good name response, take me right back to a sit, rather than like, okay, I'm just going to go and practice my start line weight. but also I think it's so important not to be training all the time. I made that mistake with Kip, you know. He's got loads and loads of trained behaviours. Unfortunately, he was chased and attacked about 4 years ago now, so that does make him nervous anyway. But he was a nervous little dog, and I did loads of training. So it's not wrong, you know, and I think his trained behaviours save him, but sometimes in a new environment, you know, we'll all say he's a little sensitive little soul. So and the other thing that I think we should add on this session is that dogs learn by association. So what you think is your dog being naughty or something, not carrying out trained behavior, is actually a response to the environment. So, you know, I worked with a dog that had used to love plastic bottles. Used to chase around the park with plastic bottles all the time, and then a crane dropped something behind. Told me I was going to raise my hands. I don't want to raise my hands. So a crane behind it dropped it as it was going to pick up a plastic bottle. It never saw the crane, it was behind a hedge. It was just a loud noise. That dog didn't like plastic bottles ever.
No.
So because it associated the plastic bottle with the noise. So I think sometimes that will happen. I had an issue in Nairobi yesterday, which was really bizarre. I took her into Kaluki, and she jumped up. She's a terrible jumper. She really is bad. And she jumped up the barrier fence and it moved because obviously it was unstable. She's never had that before. She was terrified, absolutely terrified. To the point where I went to use a bit of food and she was still twitching and everything else. I could have worked her through it, but I thought, no, do you know what you do? I'm just going to pick you up, just give you a little bit of a cuddle and take her out of the situation, you know? Because if I'd tried to fix it, it would have made it 10 times worse.
Because then you're trying to force her to do something that she's not comfortable doing.
And she's in a state of fear. So, you know, I can't learn anything if I'm in a state of fear. I'll run in a blind panic.
Exactly. But then you take time getting over that over a period of weeks, months, whatever you'll build up.
If I need to, you know, she may well, she is quite fearless. She'll probably forget all about that.
I mean, if you don't make too much of an issue of it, like you say, in a couple of weeks, months' time, she probably would have forgotten that that's even happened. And if you'd have made an issue of it or tried to force train her through it, that could make it worse, because then she'll remember it forever. I also think that, you know, I said little knowledge is dangerous. I think too much knowledge is dangerous, because I do sometimes think that I have too much knowledge in my head. So I'm like, I overthink things, and I give. Somebody said to me today, the other day, when I was teaching them, I always tell them why. And they don't need to know why; they just want to fix it. And so, and I took that on board. You know, I did take that on board. I'm like, I do always. Oh, well, that's happened because of this. That's happened because of that. That's happened because of that. I guess it's the way I teach. I like to tell people why I'm doing something. But it was a valid point. Some people don't need to know all of the ins and outs of it. As long as we can get the dog through it and they're happy with that, that's all that they need to know, really.
When is it wrong not to get I don't know how we're doing for time, but when is it wrong not to get the dog through it? So I'll generally, if I can't get a dog through something, I'll generally do a vet referral. I've probably done that quite early.
Okay. So
I've got a dog, right? That I don't think I've ever said this. I don't think I can teach it at start line weight.
Okay. And do you know, is that from a behaviour point of view, just won't do it, or?
So it's got a 10-minute out of sight weight obedience class.
Okay.
I don't know. She's tried different methods. I knew we weren't going to make this about start line weights, but and maybe let's do a whole subject. Let's do a whole subject on trained behaviours. Let's do that. But you know, there are times when you can get it all right. So you've got, you know, a good balanced dog. You've got a good reward system. You've got trained behaviours, and at the end of the day, we're dealing with a live animal, so it's going to go wrong.
Okay.
But I think it's stacking the odds up, isn't it? That's what we need to do,
that's why I said, so if
up.
we get all of our life skills in place first, we lessen the chance of something. going wrong.
First and during, isn't it? I think
we also
right.
make our agility training so much easier, which potentially should move faster, because our dogs already have an understanding of how to learn, what, you know, their confidence, so we don't have to build confidence around equipment and stuff, because they're already confident around those things.
Yeah, I love the burrowing exercises. One of my trainers do. They take in like loads of boxes, they make tunnels, they shove different materials in it. I love it for building confidence. It's amazing.
And I think that's where, because a lot of people not rush through, but a lot of people think that they have to rush through with their agility training to get things. Oh, my dog's nearly 18 months old, hasn't done this, hasn't done that.
Oh, another topic. I think people start far too early.
But I just think if we spend a little bit more time getting your life skills, your agility skills will catch up very quickly.
Yeah, well, it's the same as anything, isn't it? You lead a dog to water, but you can't make it drink it, isn't it? You know, you can have I know loads of dogs that have got fantastic skills, not just in agility trick skills. They've got a fantastic trained skill. Yeah. No life skills at all.
Yeah.
Which means that in an agility environment, in a competitive agility environment, it's never going to be able to perform its trained tricks because it hasn't got those essential skills. But
cool. Okay.
And I think you can, just as an offshore, I think you can. Oh, you know, not all, again, I'm not going to put it as a sweeping statement, but there's loads and loads of stuff and it's been proven time and time again that rescue dogs can do it. So don't make, I think that's the other essential human skills, is don't make excuses for your dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There's a few of that again, I think that's a whole different subject. Regarding, especially from a rescue dog point of view. I think
oh my god, we could do, because we've still got the thread running on the should we talk about mental behavior and excusing mental behavior. We could do it like humans and dogs, couldn't we?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it might be worth, that's another subject we can have a look at some point.
Fantastic.
Okay. I think we'll wrap that up there. Again, another good discussion. So I think we both agree that life skills are far more important than agility skills. That's not to say that agility skills aren't important, but I think the life skills need to be there first. I agree. You need to have a dog that is confident or comfortable in most environments.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool. Okay, right, we'll leave that there. It's been brilliant. Okay.
Lovely to see you again. Thanks a lot.
Another good one. See you later.
Bye.